Good evening, everybody. Thanks to our virtual audience for joining us. And there's another dog coming. Look at that. A beautiful golden. Oh, love it. So it's not Tara, or it is Tara, right?
No.
Not Tara.
Not for a long time.
Oh, but still. Anyway, how lovely. So since the dog has come in, let me take a moment to say that the Arizona Golden Rescue Group is with us. They have a very nice brochure. They'd be happy to accept a cash or check donation for their work tonight if you feel like it. And there's also, you can go to their website and you can donate online. So when Karen Slaughter was here, we raised a surprising amount of money for the kitten rescue, newborn kitten rescue group. So I'm really happy to know. Look at you. You're so beautiful. Yeah. Hi. I'm really happy to know there's so many active groups in Arizona taking care of animals. We donate, my husband and I, a lot to the Humane Society and other organizations. And we have one rescue dog and 2 cavapoos who are little terrors, but absolutely adorable. And the only objection to them I have is that the breeder said, no, they'll never need grooming. You just have to brush them. Says, as long as I can stand it, their eyebrows grow down and their and their little faces disappear. It's just, they're very fun though. Right, but you like big dogs, right? Not lousy little cavapoos.
We have 5 mastiffs, each one 200 pounds.
Oh my God. Wow. All right. So it's been a long time since we have seen David Rosenfelt here at the bookstore. Isn't it exciting to have him back? Aren't you all thrilled?
What a treat.
It actually is a treat. David's been wonderful about Zooming with me, and an advantage to that is that we've been able to see the dogs that he lives with in the place that he lives, which is really nice, because when we first knew David, he lived in California, and he would drive over here, and people would bring rescue dogs, and you always took one home.
Once 2 dogs.
2. Right.
I mean, I've told this a million times. There were 2 golden, 12-year-old Goldens, looked identical. Their names were Hunter and Tudor. And they had bandanas that said Hunter and Tudor. And as soon as we got home, our dogs mobbed the Hunter and Tudor and took the bandanas off. And for the rest of their time with us, 3 years, we never had any idea which is, we called them, we just called them Hunter Tudor.
Merged the names,
Yeah.
Did you? Right. But some of you, or probably many of you, since you're David fans, recall his epic trip across the United States. We have a couple of copies of Dog Tripping up in the front, but it turned into a really...
Misery.
An epic adventure is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You know?
Somewhere between an epic adventure and misery, depending on who you talk to.
Right. So you are now settled in Maine and probably not going to move again.
I got an email about 2 years ago. We had rented Cruise America RVs, and I got an email about 2 years ago from a guy named Benson, who was the CEO of Cruise America, and his wife had just read the book, and he said if we ever do it again, he'd like to participate. And I said, don't take it the wrong way, but if we do it again, I'm driving one of your RVs off a cliff. And I never heard from him again after that.
Scary thought. And did you do most of the driving on that trip?
I did almost none of it. Almost none. We had 3 like real men on the trip, and they did everything.
So Andy Carpenter's clearly modeled from real life,
Yeah.
right? We all know that. And I have to say that reading Santa's Little Yelpers, aren't they the corniest titles for these Christmas books? But they're really fun. This is possibly my favorite of all of the covers because I'm so enchanted with this puppy. But I have to say that the litter of Goldens who actually appear in the book on Santa's Little Yelpers are a lot of fun too. But I have to say, you always play down your plotting skill, but this one, you really tricked me.
They become really convoluted. I mean, I've told you this before, I have no idea what's going to happen in the book. It just goes. But at the end, when I reread it, I'm surprised that there's like actual plot development. Seriously, I'm always surprised by that. Anyway,
See, I think David is actually a born criminal. I've always said that. I think he has a natural talent for crime. And in this book, I can hardly believe that you didn't really see some of the end game, because I don't know how you brought it up otherwise.
none of it. There's
Isn't that discouraging? I mean, if you're a potential writer, there are 2 chairs way up here for you all. There's one over here and one over here, or there's a couple there. Feel free.
in this book. Hopefully, it's not giving anything away, but there's a hole in the ground, literally, and the plot turns on what's in the hole in the ground.
That's why I thought you actually
I
knew.
have no clue. It's going to be maybe 50 pages before I finished. 75. I don't remember. 75 pages. I decided
Okay.
what was going to be in the hole.
So you sort of just spun your way towards it.
Yeah.
All right. So Andy Carpenter, I love this phrase, is professionally retired, right? But he keeps going back to work, even though
Sort of like me,
yeah,
actually. I didn't realize till this moment that it's sort of like me.
it is sort of like
Yeah.
you, right? Except where's Marcus?
Where?
Is that me tonight? Am I Marcus?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah. It's not. Is this working at all? Yeah. Oh. Okay, I'll talk
Why
loud.
don't you just hold it like me? Because honestly, it's you can hear me, can't you?
It doesn't feel like it's working.
Even I am fuzzy. I'm not normally fuzzy. Well, right. Jake, is there a different microphone back there? Maybe that one has not been fully charged. Why don't you try giving him one of the other? We have 4, so we have a spare. Try that. Right.
You missed. I said some great stuff already.
If I'd only been recording. Actually, you know what? I'll do that because if we have a recording, we can create a podcast. Hang on a minute while I do that. Sometimes, where's the recorder on this phone?
Is that any better?
Yes.
But I'm not going to repeat the great stuff I said already. I'm telling you now.
Well, I can repeat some of it, which is I said, even though David disclaims any plotting ability that he has, that somehow magically these books always turn out to get where they are supposed to go, and they're extremely tricky. And in this book, I thought he outdid himself, but I am incredulous that he didn't know the end game before he got there. And he's saying, no, there was just a hole in the ground. He had no idea what to fill it up with.
I'm going through it right now in a book. The same problem. Exactly the same problem. I'm on page 45, and I don't even know what the crime is yet, which really makes it hard. Like, 'cause I want to keep pushing forward, but not knowing what the crime is makes it tough.
So in most of the cases that Andy works in his regular, Andy Carpenter, not the Christmas ones, like Holy Chow, which is the one from July that we still have copies of up in front. The crime has some kind of a canine connection, right? It's somebody that gets into trouble or the dog gets in trouble. Haven't we had a dog arrested at one point or impounded or something terrible?
Yes. Actually, and that's how dogs really started in the books. In the first 5 books, Andy had a dog and had a dog rescue, but they had nothing to do with the plot at all. And in book 6, which was Play Dead, he rescues a dog and he defends him in court. And that dog turns out to have been presumed dead with its owner on a boat in a murder or something. And so that's where it leads to. And they put it, because of the dog was involved, they put a golden on the cover for the first time. And it's like sold twice as many copies as any previous book. So now there will always be a dog on the cover, or many dogs, right?
Yeah, but didn't we have that discussion that they're not sure what dog will be on the cover until you at least have some grasp of the plot?
No, they tell me what dog.
Oh, and so you have to tailor the book to the dog.
Yeah, it's not exactly high art. I mean, I just changed the name from Mastiff to Yorkie. You know, whatever. You know.
Well, gradually, Andy has acquired, kind of a crew, and in fact, there's a spinoff called the K Team, right? Which is Lori and Marcus and Corey, and Corey's dog.
German Shepherd police dog.
Right. But they also are now in the regular Andy Carpenter books, and they play a role in this one. So, for a long time, if some of you cast your mind back to like early Dennis Lehane, and there was Bubba. Do I have that name right? I think it's Bubba. I'm missing Patrick tonight because he always knows the answers to the questions I forget. I mean, the stuff I forget. And Spencer had Hawk, right? Who always had his back. And so we know that even though Andy is like going off to meet the most notorious crime boss, in New Jersey, that if Marcus is with him, he's going to be completely unscathed, right?
Yes.
So there's a certain fantasy here.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I do. In the same way.
It's brutally realistic.
Well, I also think that Sam, the super hacker who somehow has never been snared by the CIA or anybody else or the Russians to go to work for him. So Andy has acquired a crew of really remarkable skills.
Yes. Nobody recently, though. Like the people you just mentioned have been there for a while, and it might be time.
For a new person?
Yeah. I just don't know what his skill would be.
Have you ever thought about replacing Edna with a person who actually did anything?
I don't know. The last couple of books, Edna's really been away.
Well, but I mean, it's the endless wedding preparation, so maybe she could just get married and settle in the Bahamas.
Yeah, but I think Andy says in this book that the advantage of having Edna as an employee is that when she's away, you don't have to hire a replacement for her. Right? Because she doesn't do anything. So.
No, I understand, but if you need a new character, she's clearly a person we could spare.
Yeah, it's just if I get a new character, I have to do something with the character,
Like actually be a secretary?
Well, like anything. It's like I gave Andy a kid, which was a major mistake, right? Because now I have to take care of the kid, and where's he? So I send him to camp.
Yeah, but
Right.
that was one of her best books. I thought the book where they went off to Maine and the kid went to camp was Maine, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was
twice. He's going to spend a lot of time at camp. I think.
as
it might be
kids do.
Boarding school for him.
But there again, if he hadn't gone to Maine, you wouldn't have had that really brilliant plot, the one that you apparently thought up at the last second. But I really like that. But here, he's been bribed with a trip to Disneyland that gets postponed from Christmas to spring vacation.
Yeah, and Andy's conversations with him have something to do with solving the plot, of Andy figuring out the plot at the end. So I found something for him to do in this book. But, Andy and Lori can't go off to a crime scene because who's going to babysit Ricky?
Another advantage for replacing Edna is that Edna could have child sitting capability.
Maybe a nanny, a combination nanny office manager.
There you go. Right. I just think Edna's a waste of space, so I'm trying to work hard.
Yeah, I'm beating that Edna joke to death about not working. I have to do something about that.
All right. So in this particular book, how does it get going?
What is the book?
The plot.
Oh.
Stay on point, David.
I just skimmed the book before I came out here. So,
well, fortunately, I've read it, so if you're stuck, I'll help.
There's a guy who works for him as a volunteer at the Tara Foundation who used to be a lawyer who went to prison for manslaughter. He punched somebody behind a bar and killed him, or so they say, and he claimed his innocence, and all of a sudden, the main witness against him is going to recant his testimony.
But wait, no, you skipped a couple of things. The guy's been in prison. The guy starts a dog training program in prison.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's just exposition. You don't see that.
Well, I'm just laying the groundwork here. Right. So now he's out and working sort of under, parole supervision at the Dog Foundation. And everybody, he's always said he was innocent, but everybody just has let that go. And then suddenly, the witness, the only real reason that he was convicted was an eyewitness, a convincing eyewitness, comes to the man and says, I was paid to do it, and I will recant. So he comes to Andy to get Andy to file. This is great. See, I remember.
Yeah.
Right, to file a motion to, clear his conviction. And then
he's going to recant his recantation, if that's a word, and he gets murdered, the witness, and our hero, the guy, is on the scene when it happens, and he gets arrested for the murder. The motive being the guy, lied and put him in jail in the first place. So Andy defends him now for murder, and that's
right. So did he kill the man for, was it revenge? The guy was going to clear him, and then the guy recants. But as Andy points out, it didn't make really any sense to kill the guy because he was the only hope of exoneration. So Andy doesn't like to defend anyone who's guilty. Has he ever defended anybody who's guilty? Okay, which book was that?
I have no idea.
Okay, fans,
But
which book is it?
And it was one of middle books, like the 14th one or one of those.
Yeah.
He did, and he got him off and extracted his revenge, and somehow at the end, after the trial. Not exactly a new concept, but yes, once I think the guy was guilty.
Most legal thrillers are from the defense standpoint, and most of the time the client turns out to be innocent. But there are a couple of books like Marcia Clark who actually writes from the prosecutor's standpoint, and then the question is, can the prosecutor succeed in convincing a defendant who is so slippery or whatever that the defendant might get off? And it's interesting to flip them, but there are far fewer prosecutor, let's get him guilty than there are defense attorneys, let's get him off. And I often blame Earl Stanley Gardner for that, although, the courtroom theatrics were completely impossible.
Didn't Michael Connolly have Mickey Haller switch sides in one book?
He did, in one book. Harry persuaded his half-brother, Mickey, to work for the police department or on the prosecution side. And Mickey did successfully, but he just was so uncomfortable. He went back to the defense. Did any of you watch the new Lincoln Lawyer, the TV thing? I thought it was really great, and I can't tell you how infuriated I was to realize that the key piece of evidence was right there in front of me, and only at the end did I wake up and realize there it was the whole damn time. Oh, but I thought it was really well done, and it's been renewed for another season. So. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, he's not Matthew McConaughey. He's a different guy, but I really think he's more plausible in the long run. What did you think, since you said you'd seen it? You were nodding your head. An upgrade. Me too. Yeah, I know. But that's why I was so infuriated when I heard. Yeah, but I thought the guy was really well cast. Actually, when you get somebody as big a star as like McConaughey, it becomes all about McConaughey, and the other guy, really is Mickey, which is a big difference. Right. So when we cast Andy Carpenter, who do you wish to see?
People ask me that, and I used to be in the movie business, and I was in marketing, and my job was to know, among the things that I had to know, every actor and director. I was completely familiar with it. Now I don't have the vaguest idea who these people are anymore. So when people ask me who should play Andy, I'm thinking Peter Falk would be good. I have no idea.
I thought you were going to say George Clooney or I don't know.
But at one point, Andy almost became a TV series.
Really?
And and they were talking about the guy who was in Noah Noah Wiley? Is that who it is? Who?
Ryan Reynolds. He'd be a good Andy. Oh, yeah.
They could cast Shirley Temple. I'd be fine with it. Trust me.
And then you have to wonder if it would be CGI for Tara, because did any of you see the Jack London? What is it? The Call of the Wild, right? The dog was actually computer generated. It was well, and the reason is that the contracts for dogs in Hollywood are quite complex, and you have to have a minimum of 3 or more because the dog can only work in front of the cameras for a fairly short time, and it's not that easy to find relatively identical dogs that are able to work. So I think that you're going to see more. Oh, look, here comes another golden. Yes, hi, beautiful. I think you're going to see more computer-generated animals on screen because it's actually a lot easier than, trying to do a real one. If this whole meta thing comes off, none of us are going to be here. We're all going to be home wearing a headset. And I know, right. She seems more interested in the dog in the bag than. Oh, sweetie. Do you brush her every day? Do you brush her every day? She's going to the spa. I see.
She's leaving.
Okay. She's really sweet. Sure.
So with all the dog breeds that you've owned and written about, what's your favorite?
Well, Goldens for sure.
Yeah.
But now we have a lot of Mastiffs, and they're wonderful, really great. And Bernese Mountain Dogs, we love, and Great Pyrenees, Newfies are great. And we only have really large dogs now, but Goldens are.
Is that because you're in Maine?
It's which because we're men.
The big dogs? Because we
No,
were in
we have big dogs in California.
Did you?
But the reason we have so many large dogs now is because there's a Mastiff rescue person in Massachusetts who we've connected to who comes up with these dogs that really can't be placed and really need help. So that's why we've gotten a bunch of those. New England has no rescue problem at all. So there's no need for us to place dogs in homes like we did in California. We just take in dogs that can't be placed. And then in New England, that's pretty rare. Like people,
Are they more geriatric or are they more just?
In our house? Dogs in our house, you mean?
Yeah.
That we take geriatric, yeah. Yeah. And, and illnesses of various kinds and blind or epileptic or, whatever makes people not want them.
Yeah.
That's what we take. But mostly it's age.
I used to have cats, and my sitter was just like that. She only took geriatric, and she'd have like 18 pugs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Missing eyes and
Right.
It's wonderful. There's somebody to step up for those dogs. We had an event last month with Kevin Hearn, who used to live here, and he has a character in his series. Trying to remember the name of the dog. It'll come to me. But anyway, he's an Irish Wolfhound. Oberon the Irish Wolfhound. So the store was awash with Irish Wolfhounds. I mean, they're tall. They're not.
Never had one.
They're really wonderful dogs, but there must have been 12 or 15 Irish Wolfhounds here all wandering around. How are they different? They have. Oh.
anyway, he was big.
Yeah. Well, we found that the wolfhounds were tall, but they, were fairly thin. I mean, their legs were skinny and the whole bit. So anyway, it was fun to see them. Yeah.
Get any work done with this herd of dogs?
Excellent.
You've got so many of them, and you got to take care of them. And so many of them have special needs. How do you get anything accomplished for yourself and your wife?
Have you read my books? The trick is to go for quantity and not quality. I'm really fast. writing, and our dogs are not, you know, disruptive and stuff. I mean, they're old, they just hang out, you know, so it's a lot of work to feed and taking them to the vet and stuff, but it's, you know, it's nothing that,
You're not out playing in the snow and
no,
no.
no. I mean, they're going to be excited because winter's coming, so they love the snow. I mean, we can hardly get them to come in the house when it's cold out.
You have staff that helps you take care of the dogs?
Sorry?
You have people that help?
No.
Some worker that?
No. But we only have 12 dogs now. I mean, in California, we almost never had less than 30.
David's wife, if I remember, got him into this,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't it your wife who actually got you into the whole
Yes.
dog thing?
Yes,
So she
makes me
can't
look normal.
complain because it was really her that got it going.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in California, we were also running a rescue foundation, just the two of us. And we placed thousands of dogs. And the ones we brought home are the ones that we rescued that were old or ill or something that we couldn't place in homes.
So here's an interesting thing. When we adopted our rescue dog, she's now 8, so it was probably 7 years ago. And I say 8, that's sort of everybody's best guess. And we sent her out for a DNA test. So she's half Shiba Inu and part terrier and part, I can't remember what else. She's a beautiful dog. She really looks like a Shiba Inu. But anyway, she was a beautiful puppy, about a year old. And I said, you know, what's her history? And they said, well, we don't know. She came from California. Because she was really small. And I said, why did she come from California? And she said, well, here's the deal. She said, when we do rescues, all the small dogs that we rescue here in Arizona, we send them, the first dog, send them to California. And California sends us their big dogs. So I thought that was interesting. But you didn't, I mean, the dogs that you were placing in California were big dogs.
We only took big dogs, and we placed like 4,000, and like 2,500, I would guess, were Goldens.
Maybe the small dogs just went to Beverly Hills. You know? There's a real possibility there.
We took big ones because small dogs are so much easier to
What is the ding? Does somebody have their phone on? There's a ding.
Phone thingy. I know, I turned it off.
Oh, thank you. Well, we have a buzzer on the door. No, it's okay, but it does sound really bizarre in the video. So thank you for turning it off. Let me just say something. You know, David's always sort of downplays himself as an author, but for one thing, he's really funny. And I think his dialogue is fabulous. And I thought I had marked, you had a description of the food being served at a party that everybody went to. Do you remember that? Where the no, you wouldn't. I'll find it. Because, I mean, I think, one of the reasons I read every book that David has written. We have been together the entire arc of David's career, so I'm always up to speed. And one of the reasons, I love the plots. Some of them work better than others, but mostly and I'm very good at this, mostly I don't see the end game, and that was true even in your standalone thrillers, not just the Andy Carpenters, but remember the reverse one where the guy commuted from New York to New Jersey with a heart? That was one of my favorites. But the other is that they're just so much fun to read. Don't you all, you laugh your way through them?
That book turned out to be a bit of a disaster. It was called Heart of a Killer. And it was I thought it was a really good, meaningful story about a woman who was in prison, and her daughter on the outside, her 16-year-old daughter, had a heart defect and was going to die without a transplant, and she needed a perfect match. And the mother in prison was the perfect match, and she wanted to commit suicide, to give her heart to her daughter so her daughter could live a more meaningful life than she was going to live in prison. So, and she was the perfect match. So the book comes out, or maybe it was a week before the book was going to come out. We had dinner with friends in Maine, and the guy lives in Maine half the year. He's a world-renowned hematologist at Johns Hopkins. And he was nice enough to have read the book. And he said, I don't know if I should tell you this, but you don't have to be a perfect match and do a heart transplant. He said, it's not even important. And he said, if it was important, it wouldn't be the mother, it would be a sibling. So the entire book is bullshit. The entire premise of the book is based on needing. She's the only perfect match, and it turned out to be. Yeah.
Did you all watch House? Do you remember House and how chilling it was with Hugh Laurie? Do you remember the one where the guy, talk about improbable, the guy had been in a coma for like 9 or 10 years, had not been out of bed, and I can't remember exactly what the reason was, but they had to animate him to go to a scene. So they give him some kind of a drug, and the guy who has not moved for 10 years actually gets up and walks. So that's the first thing that is, there's no way that is happening. At the end, because it's his child who has this really bizarre illness, the same thing. The guy can go back into his coma and, go for life, or House says to him, or you could just go hang yourself and I'll use your heart. And I sort of blinked, but then he said, take an aspirin. Oh, just, I mean, seriously, that was one of the most cold-blooded programs. I mean, it was fascinating, but I've never forgotten that. On your way to hang yourself, take an aspirin.
I did something worse accidentally. I don't think I've ever talked about this because it's actually, for all the stupid mistakes I make, this one embarrasses me, the one I'm about to say. I wrote a book, I don't know, it's like 5 books ago, and in it there's a mobster named Joseph Russo, who's the mob guy in New Jersey, right? And about 2 weeks before the book was going to come out, a woman writes to me and said, how is it that Joseph Russo is in this book when he was killed in Outfoxed, right? 4 books earlier. So I'm about to say to her, no, he was never killed. And I go and look. Right, and not only was he killed, he had his head blown off. Right? What? Well, so yes, so we tried to change it, and but it was too late. So it actually came out wrong. So I wrote to the woman and I said, think of it as a medical thriller. Right? But it's really that's. I mean, things like my writing in Airtight, that they found the victim lying face down on his back. Right? Like, that's a stupid mistake, but this is like at a whole other level. Right? So now now the son took over. But not for that book. That was too late for that book.
So fortunately, I was able to recall the page on which this description. I love this. How many of you have ever been to a school party at a gym, right, or a school party? So here's the description of the party. The party. This is Andy and Lori being good parents and going with Ricky to the gym. The party is in the school gym. There's tinsel everywhere, hanging from the ceiling and the blackboard, and rims on the court. The food is spread out on one table. It consists of pieces of what is either cheese or formica, along with carrots and celery. The liquid in the punch bowl is interesting. It's as if they couldn't decide whether to have eggnog or fruit punch, so they split the difference. Think grape juice that oozes rather than pours. I mean, is that an evocative sentence or what? Grape juice that oozes.
That's beautiful prose.
It really, I mean, yeah.
Exactly right. And yet, it didn't win the Nobel Prize again this year.
You mean for chemistry?
Yeah.
Right. But seriously, I mean, David is funny, but really, I think that his gift is language. I mean, he really is a wonderful stylist, and your choice of words.
Thank you.
And Andy always comes up with like that one word, right? Something goes on, and Andy always makes that one word comment that is so good. But you're such a smart ass yourself; it's just natural, right? We've had a lot of conversations off camera, so that's how I know. Right. All right. Back to live questions. Yes, sir.
I'm from Jersey. So, Janet Ivanovich, when she writes, she was originally from Trenton, and when she writes, you could tell that her Trenton is from the 1960s. Do you ever get back to Patterson to tune in? Yeah. Or are you ready?
Yeah, I drive through occasionally. It's been a few years.
You don't stop because of repercussions.
No, I mean, I have nothing but great memories of Patterson, and the neighborhood we grew up in looks exactly the same. So I go every few years. I drive through, but I'm sure a lot of it's not accurate, even though people write to me and say it is, you know. And I don't get heavily into description of anything. So, you know, I know restaurants that still exist and so on. So, but, you know, I wouldn't say I know Patterson like the back of my hand anymore. That's for sure.
Anyone else? Oh, wait back there. Just a second, sir, because you've asked one. Yes, ma'am.
Someplace in real life, and have you ever met anyone who will pay the tab for their friends?
Yes. You talk about the sports bar I go to. I was talking to somebody else about it. No, it's well, yeah, it's sort of real. There's a sports bar in Summers Point, New Jersey, named Charlie's. It's a great sports bar. I haven't been there in 30 years, but I know it still exists. So it's based. That's where I got it from. But it's, you know, it's a pretty generic sports bar, you know. And no, I'd never. No.
In this book, Andy actually threatens to make them pay their own tab, but he's suspicious that they're ordering breakfast and lunch carryout because the tab is so much higher than it could possibly be.
Where if I'm beating those jokes to death, like, you know, that's like in every book. You know, I mean, they have banter about that. So I don't.
It's kind of like spending time with old friends.
Yeah, it's just like I don't remember the plots of the books. I don't remember a lot of the dialogue, right? You know, so I'm always, my biggest concern when I'm writing it is that Andy's going to say something funny that was in 3 books ago, you know, and I'm sure I do that on occasion. It's hard to keep it fresh.
Where's your editor in this process? That's a function an editor should have.
I can't expect, Kelly's my editor. She's fantastic. I can't expect her to remember what, you know, dialogue from 5 books ago. I mean, it's like been, I don't know, this is like the 26th or 27th Andy book, right?
True.
So, I don't know, the toughest thing to keep fresh, and I would sometimes wonder how other writers do it, is to introduce the new characters, the old characters, in a way that the book can be read as a standalone, but you don't bore, you know, frequent readers to death with the descriptions. So that's, you know, how many times can you say Marcus is a scary guy the first time you meet him? You know what I mean? So that's hard for me. I mean, you know, that's the toughest part about it. And then when I wrote the standalones, that problem didn't exist.
Are you going to go back and write them?
No, nobody buys them.
Oh.
I'm like the dog guy. You know,
That's true, and they can't put dogs on the covers of the standalones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
K-Team is selling really well because there's a dog and it's Andy and so on. I mean, people write to me and refer to the Andy books as the Tara books. Yeah, she's just Andy's dog, right? She has nothing to do with the plot or anything. They refer to it as the Tara books. So. You know.
Yes, sir. You had another question.
I was just going to ask you have friends like Andy does in his book, the chief of police, and the editor of the paper, that you go to the bars with, or
No, I have a friend actually who's
jabs at each other?
who I just communicated with on Sunday. There's a guy who wrote to me when Dead Center came out, which was a book set in northern Wisconsin. And a guy wrote to me and said, hey, I really liked, you know, he lives up northern Wisconsin. He really liked it. I nailed it, even though I had never been there. And he was the chief of police in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. And a couple of years later, we emailed back and forth. A couple of years later, I was going to be in Milwaukee on a tour, I guess. And I got tickets to a Packer game at Lambeau. So we went together. So we've been friends since. He visited us in Maine and so on. And this Sunday, the Packers played the Giants, right? And so we had quite a thing, and the Giants won, which is unheard of. So yes, he's a pretty good friend now, but not. No, I know some journalists, but not like Andy does.
So the whole sports thing is you.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
So, I don't want to admit it, I'm here tonight because I have a golden retriever, and my neighbor said, we're going to this thing at the Poison Pen, which I've been here a lot of times. But, so, I'm anxious to read one of your books, but I'm not going to ask you because you don't remember your books, so I'd like to ask the audience.
You haven't read any of my books?
You could do that, but
What an empty life you've lived.
this is the last. Seriously, this one.
But I'm happy.
Now, this one is absolutely one of the best, and this is the last copy. So, if I were you, I would buy this
So
one.
is that the first?
No, it's one of the Christmas ones, and you don't need to.
friend who's never read one of them.
Right.
I've read all of them like that.
So there's an example that when Play Dead, that was the first book. When
And it
Play
did
Dead
not
came
have
out,
back cover for
6
sure.
books later, they went back and reissued them with dogs on the cover.
Right. Yep. Well, you can have that. I don't, that might be our onlyest one, but I wanted to point out, I brought a couple of them up there, that the Christmas ones, and when do we start doing those? Do you remember?
When do we what?
When do we start doing the Christmas books?
It's got to be 5 years, maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But see, they all have these kind of punny titles.
Either the first or the second.
What's
Right.
that?
So this is
Father die in the first one or the second?
The first one.
the first one. The end of the
Really
first
great
one.
book.
Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Yep.
Open and shut.
The first one.
Start with number one.
But I wanted to point out the fun titles for if you've missed them. Deck the Hounds, which I particularly like. And where is this one? This one I thought reached for it a little bit. Dachshund Through the Snow. Right? And then we come back to the one I've already mentioned, Best in Snow. And
Well, wait
I
a minute.
think
So
it's-
you have 3 there? So then it's more than 5 because there was Silent Bite,
Yep.
which is embarrassing. 12 Dogs of Christmas was, I
Yep.
think, the first one. So that's
I-
5,
these are
and
the
then this
ones
would
we
be
have
6.
left that
Right,
have
so this
not,
would be
yeah.
the 6th one then.
So it would be, right. But anyway,
Yeah.
they're really fun. And, they come out in October and they have these funny titles, and there's always some connection with the holiday.
Do you write one book a year? Or
3.
He's writing 3.
three?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the ordinary Andy books usually come out in July. The Christmas books come out in October for the last few years, and then in the spring, in March,
Katie.
it was the thrillers, and now it's the K team. So it's 3 a year.
Do you handwrite or
No, on a computer. And I refer you to my previous comment about quantity versus quality. So,
A career in
no, on
marketing,
the computer.
right? A career in marketing probably set you up to do this.
Yes,
It did.
yes. I don't read a lot because when I'm writing I can't read, but I mostly nonfiction. The only fiction writers I'll stop to read are Lee Child and Michael Connolly.
Speaking of Lee Child and Michael Conley, Lee and Andrew, not Lee, will be here on October 24th. And I just finished it, and Andrew will forgive me if I say this. Andrew has now really settled into the Lee Child voice. He was a little too wordy in the first couple, but this new reacher,
Is he writing the most of it? I mean, where does that?
well,
You know?
they're writing them together, but I think Andrew is writing most of it, and Lee is working on the plot. But we'll talk to
Whoever's
Andrew
doing
about
it is
that.
really good.
Yep.
I mean, those guys are great.
They are good. And then Michael Connolly will be here on November 9th, and Janet Ivanovich will be
Awesome.
here on November 7th. So
Connolly's
we
another,
have-
it's like annoyingly good, Michael Connolly.
he is. I've saved his new book as a treat when I pace myself. So I read your book this afternoon, for example, as a treat.
We were in Hong Kong once time coming home, and the Lee Child book wasn't coming out that year for 3 weeks. And I was really upset that I wasn't going to have it for the flight home. And in the bookstore on the airport, because it was British,
The
was
British
the book.
edition.
It came
Yeah.
out early. It was fantastic. Right?
You had a thrill of superior or whatever.
Yeah, it was great.
I love it.
I had it the whole flight home. Somebody had a question.
Listen to all your own.
Who narrates Beauregard really makes Andy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Has it been the same narrator most of the time? That's really nice when it's consistent like that.
I only heard him for the first time like a year ago, because I guess I never wanted to know what it sounded like, but I've communicated with him a lot, and people love him.
Yes.
And the books, one year, one of the books, I think was Unleashed, won the Audie Award for Best Book of the Year, right? And the writing is no better in the audio books than the print books, right? So it's all him. He's unbelievable.
That's great when you get a really good
And he's like a
voice.
serious player in that world. Like he does the John Updike books, he did the Robert Caro, LBJ
Then he
books.
probably loves your books because they're fun.
Like he's slumming it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Reading the book and
that's what everybody says. Yeah,
into
yeah,
sound.
that's what everybody says.
I've always thought that David books would be so well adapted to the screen because they are so dialogue driven, and that's really what it takes to make a great screenplay in us this conversation. So, does anybody else have a question? No, I'm a little worried that the dogs are going to run out of patience, so I'm thinking that we might want to move on. Yes, sir.
Have you read any of like Spencer Quinn or Carol E. Benjamin?
What about them? I'm sorry.
Have you read any of those
No.
books?
I
I did some signings with Spencer Quinn, and I hear
Yeah.
he's terrific, but I haven't.
He's a lovely guy, right? And his series is set here in Scottsdale because I'm the one who said to him, you need to move into this area from writing thrillers. His actual name is Peter Abrahams. Yeah, great guy. Yep, he was here in July, and he has a radically new thing coming out, a senior sleuth, a Mrs. Polifax. I'm really excited. All of a sudden, I'm conscious of this. All of a sudden, there are a number of senior women sleuths who are really kicking ass. It's
Did you see Angela
wonderful.
Lansbury died today?
No, did she?
Today.
No, and I was very sad to see that Peter Robinson died the other day. He was a wonderful writer, Canadian writer. He's been here many, many times. So it's been a hard. How old? She was in her 90s?
96.
Like Queen Elizabeth.
Hmm?
Like
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth. Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, yes.
I just read a book called Red Notice.
Oh, great.
Bill Brower, which was wonderful. Not more recent stuff, not historical nonfiction.
Well, I want to thank the canines for being so good. They've been extraordinarily good. Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.